It's 7 o'clock on a Sunday night, and you know what that means. It's Topical starts right now. Very good evening to you, South African, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical, our digital audience back with us tonight. So good to have them. Among them, our guests, Willem, Gregory, Mofokeng. Good to see them. Looking forward to our digital audience questions for our guests in the short while. The threats posed by the current wave of extortions. Very much in the sharp focus this week. We heard the police minister saying that 4 provinces, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, carry 73% of crime levels in South Africa. Now, the gravity of these crimes alone, including extortions, is of serious concern. Extortion has been emerging over time and has reached communities beyond the 4 provinces I've just mentioned now. So what is being done about it? What impact is it having on businesses in particular in your area? What effect is it having on you and your family? We will discuss. Which leads us to the question of the week, and we're asking you, what strategies can be adopted to protect communities, businesses, and vulnerable groups from extortion? These are the groups that are most affected, we're told. We will discuss, we'll get into that in a short while. Let us know at SABC News_TV. As always, let's walk and talk. Let's get you some context. I want to know what communities are going through on a daily basis. What's the lived experiences? Very important to understand. Also, what are the solutions, right? Where are the hotspots? I want you to talk to us at SABC News_TV. Perspective coming up. All right, let's tee it up for you. The discussion that is what we know and why it matters. Head to the magic wall. So, affected industries and populations. As you can see, this type of crime cuts across demographics and sectors, right? Revealing deep-seated problems that demand urgent attention and community engagement. Now, with regards to the areas, the cases that are under investigation, around 6 provinces that we have here up on our screen affected. The total is 91 cases, right? Now, this number, just bear in mind, it's fluid, so it could change by now. But reportedly, the Western Cape, as you can see on your bottom left-hand side, that number, cases that are under investigation, the number stood at 43 when we last checked. It's important to note this. I'll tell you why in a short while. So, here's an important slide. What can be done to put paid to this type of crime? Steps to address extortion. It talks about the collaboration between state, police, communities, and local government. You heard a little bit of that earlier on during the press briefing by the National Commissioner of Police. Also, to develop a detailed plan with proactive criminal justice involvement. Proactive being the operative word here. Also, make it safe for victims to report extortion. How best can we do that? There's a hotline that is operational. Is it effective? We heard over 1,000 calls were taken. Around 600 of those were prank calls, right? There was about 36, I think, cases that are currently being investigated, or plausible cases that to be investigated. We're going to discuss that in a short while. So, the understanding is that the specific impact on these sectors, in particular business, will underscore, I guess, the urgency of addressing extortion and inspire action from stakeholders. That's the hope. We will break that down in a short while, a little bit further. All right, here's the problem. And stay with me for this, because I'm going to give you some context here. It doesn't only affect businesses, right? The most vulnerable community members, too, are bearing the brunt. From the elderly to those living with disabilities. They are the victims of extortion. Evidence to this is the stories that the SABC has uncovered, especially in the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. Take a look at this montage. It's produced by Mofokeng Motlabe, and it reminds us of what communities are going through.
We are the victims of protection fee in the way that we are disturbed in our lives.
Blind and deaf people say they are terrorized and forced to hand over their house keys to a group of people.
They came for the second time and demand the keys. This protection fee, it is unusual to us.
Asikwazi ukurenda njengoba befuna abezindlini zethu sirende, asinokwazi ukurenda izindlu zethu.
It's alleged that a group of men and women approached the school demanding the money for this cell phone network tower.
We cannot give no respect to no one whose position comes from that point of arrogance.
Matata West residents have rallied behind their leader, Dalinzolo Mareke. They have voiced their anger against what they call the derogatory remarks about their leader.
I know nothing about the protection fee, but what I know is that they are fighting the crime here in this area.
To our breaking news now. Police have shot and killed 3 suspects in the Matata West area.
It's alleged that they were part of a ring of extortionists who were demanding a protection fee from local residents.
We hear that one of the suspects who were shot dead is none other than Dalinzolo Mareke, the traditional leader of Matata West.
It is the suspect allegedly who shot first at the police. As a result, one of the police officers was injured.
Informal traders working hard to make an honest living.
What have these people told you? What do you need to do to remain safe?
Me must pay 300 for protection. They take money, they take my phone. Now I don't have a phone.
You can pay because you can't do anything because if you don't pay, they'll kill you or they'll stab you. So you have to pay.
The construction mafia is said to be crippling business and building in KwaZulu-Natal.
I think the only person that can assist us is the government.
The mafia groups, also called business forums, are said to be demanding as much as a 30% share of any construction project in the province.
As much as they are construction mafias, it's very important to collaborate. I've been in the industry for 2 decades with the construction mafia involved.
We call on the coalition government to eradicate conditions provided fertile ground for this criminality.
Their demands for local taxes, similar to those seen in regions where gangs or militias have completely taken over the state functions.
There is no comprehensive crime prevention strategy. And until that happens, you're always going to run after the fact. After extortion has happened, you'll be running after people.
We also ask the cooperation of traditional leaders and all of our communities to work with police and to assist them to arrest these extortioners to make our communities safer.
If we work with the Department of Justice, we have to improve conviction rates. Otherwise, our prison doors are revolving doors. Time for talk is over. It's time for us to act now.
We think that quite a large number of criminals get paroles unduly and prematurely in a number of cases. Currently, the operational plan is being rolled out here in the Western Cape and Cape Town with its new 6 sub-districts that are going to make it much more easier for us to monitor, to police these areas. The model will be replicated in all metros in the country.
Right. Those are the lived experiences for many people there. I guess the word of the night would be proactive. You can't keep on chasing, right, as Dr. Ndlozi mentioned in that montage. Many thanks, though, to Mofokeng Motlabe. We did invite the South African Police Services. They weren't available, but you've heard from them earlier on. We'll try to get you a clip of the National Commissioner, Police Commissioner, in terms of how they are tackling it. Do you feel that there's a sense of urgency? Come, let's discuss with our guests we've gathered here tonight. The Vice President of Organised Business at the Black Business Council, Mr. Gregory Mofokeng, joins us live, as well as Willem, Senior Training Coordinator, ENACT Programme, Institute for Security Studies. Thank you very much indeed. We also did invite the community activist from Matata, Pumla Machaya. Hopefully she will join us in a short while. I don't see Gregory there. Please control if he is. Bring him back. I need to get him on a few questions, but let's maybe stay with Willem at this time. Sir, good to have your better mind on the program. You've heard what the National Police Commissioner had said in terms of the strategy or the approach that they are taking. And a lot of the times when brazen suspects engage police, those suspects often come out second best, right? You get what I'm saying. Is that enough of a deterrent, though, to put pay to such crime?
Good evening to you. To look at your first question, I heard what the National Commissioner said, and also it is really encouraging to see that the National Commissioner stepped to the fore and he started with the implementation of these strategies. You know, in the recent past, the commissioner was missing in action, and he was overshadowed by the minister who actually took the lead. And this time we see the minister is in the background. He's doing the strategies, he's doing the policies in the background, and in Parliament, and he is allowing the National Commissioner and his team to take action. So this is wonderful. It's encouraging to see that they have started with implementation of the strategies that have been there for a long time, but we failed and they lacked implementation. So that is wonderful. But I think, we spoke about proactive, and the one thing is intelligence, but the second thing that we have to, and if we don't start there, we in 2 years, 3 years down the line, we're gonna have the same discussion, and that is to curb corruption within the police ranks. If we don't start there, we are not going to make headways into this, because just remember, these are organized crime syndicates, and they have to compromise state actors in order for protection, in order for them to be able to thrive.
Right.
And if there's only one police officer within a group of police officers at work that is compromised, it just defeats the end of everything that they're doing.
Give us real-world consequences in terms of allegations of corruption within the police service and how it manifests and its bearing on fighting crimes such as extortion.
Well, in the first place, we keep on talking. We have to. Everybody in Parliament says we have to look at corruption, but we don't see a strategy. We see the minister that is hard on corruption. He points that out. It was the second priority in his speech last week in Parliament, that we have to curb corruption. But we would like to see some tangible evidence what the police is doing. One of the options is, of course, we see that they've got this hotline now for this extortion. One should be a hotline for corruption. If the public has got someone to speak to when they are facing with corrupt officials, that might be a beginning in order to get rid. And listen, with that, we don't say that every police officer is corrupt. Right. It's those bad apples that are really spoiling the broth for us.
Yeah, the bad actors tend to taint what is generally a good force, a force for good. And trying to stop this, it is a difficult thing to stop. You need to get ahead of it. There needs to be proactive measures in place. What are those proactive measures? We will discuss in a little while. But I want to bring in, from earlier on, the National Police Commissioner, who mentioned the approach and what they have done so far in order to combat this crime. Take a look.
These criminals were very brazen to walk into that base and confront a member or look for a specific member. And when the member appeared, then they started shooting at the member in his base. So we don't regret. They got what they wanted. If you go into a police station or a base like that of NIU, you go and attack a member in that base, there's nothing else that you were looking for except what they got, and do not hesitate to do it tomorrow if such an attack happens again.
So you got an understanding in terms of how police are trying to get ahead of the game, so to speak. Let's go to our digital audience. Andiswa, let's hear what you have to say. What are people talking about in your community? Andiswa, there we go.
Yes, Mr. Blaine, thank you for this opportunity. What I would say firstly is when you have to look at this extortion issue, you don't have to just put one lens. You have to put many different lenses in order to deal with the specific matter. Firstly, I'll just say from the government's point of view, what I would say it is fair to say that the government should try by all means possible to try and address the current socio-economic conditions that we are currently facing, like unemployment, like the minister said, to say that if we address the unemployment is the root cause of all these crimes that we see in our daily lives. So if we fix the root cause, then we might be able to go on, you know.
Right.
And then if I can look at it from the community's point of view, I would say that there should be programs, like awareness programs that should be conducted, like the business workshops and identifying and reporting these kinds of incidences, because sometimes you find that the people are just not aware that they have to report such incidences. Yeah. Like the minister, Mr. Mkunu, said that most of the time these perpetrators are highly armed, you know. So at some point it instills fear to people to actually report this kind of incidences. Right. So what then could be done? So I know that there's, I read about the hotlines that already been established. So implementing this or establishing these anonymous reporting mechanisms could be actually one of the things that could help to deal with such. As I've already said, that some of these mechanisms that have already been established. It's just a matter of teaching people how to actually utilize these mechanisms, because some of them are just not sure how to utilize these mechanisms.
Right, and it's a step. I guess it's a step in the right direction, right? And never underestimate the power of fear. And I guess that is part of the MO or the method that these perpetrators try to use to scare you into submission, right? That hotline number, I think we have it. Let's put it up if we can. The number is 082 387 1561. 082 387 1561. I understand it's only operational in terms of the Eastern Cape, but you heard from the National Commissioner saying that out of the 1,180, around 600 were prank calls. And he suspects that maybe some of the alleged extortionists are trying to use that to discourage. But there were about 36 or so cases that they could investigate. So I guess it is a step in the right direction. Do you agree, Kadu Musa?
Good evening, everyone. Once again, it is a great pleasure for me to be here again, where I can be able to share my personal perspective regarding the issue of extortion in our societies. First of all, I want to acknowledge that extortion, it is really a crisis that demands our attention and action. We have seen devastating impacts on individuals, businesses, and also communities. For me, from the Road Accident Fund beneficiaries who are threatened and intimidated into handling over their compensation payouts, also to the small businesses owners who are forced to pay protection fees to local gangs, and also again to the schools that are targeted by extortions demanding money from principals and teachers. So these cases are a stark reminder that extortion is a real and a present danger in our society. But today I want to highlight on the strategies that can be put in place to mitigate extortion. To tackle extortion, we need to take proactive steps. Since the law enforcement are not always there for us, they only become to be there whenever the crime has already occurred. So this means that us also as individuals, we need to be smart. For instance, if you are a road accident fund beneficiary, why tell everyone about that? Why using money recklessly by hosting parties and all that? Because by doing so, you are already drawing attention of extortionists to yourself. So it is important to keep a low profile when you get your payouts.
You know, I get the low profile, right? And I get for people to be smart about it. I guess the pushback would be from people in that similar situation is, why should I do that? You know, why shouldn't I enjoy my wealth or whatever, my hard work? I get what you're saying. So my point is that there needs to be measures in place to prevent this from even happening. So how do we get to that point? Noluvo, talk to us about what you're hearing on the ground.
Thank you so much for having me on this talk show. So the crime extortion, it's a collective crime that requires a collective response. So it needs collaborative efforts from the community police forums, from the SAPS, from the society, and everyone needs to be involved in this thing, because it does not only affect the society, but it affects the economy as well. So it brings unnecessary migrations from provinces to other provinces, because people will run away from those communities that they feel they are being violated and constantly living in fear. So police officers, as Willem said, that they need to deal with corruption first on their level, and also create the understanding, like the trust between them and the community, so that they're gonna report these things timelessly. And also these hotlines are there, yes, there will be prank calls, but how many convictions have been made through those reports that have been made? Police officers need to raise up their socks, create trust between them and the society, then everything will.
It's an important point, trust being the operative word there as well. Gregory, Mofokeng, does the business community trust that the police can protect them in this regard?
Len, good evening to you and to the fellow panelists and to your viewers. The sad reality that we are now settled with is the total breakdown of law and order, as we are seeing it. We from the business fraternity are very much concerned about the experience of our members and other businesses that are operating in the different communities throughout the country. In fact, the issue of the construction mafia in particular, we raised this issue early on in 2014, 2015, and we were hoping at the time that the police will pounce on this, make sure that they nip it in the bud, and that it does not extend to other provinces, because at the time it was only prevalent in KZN. Well, you've already stated in your opening remarks that it has now extended to other provinces and has now affected other business activities beyond the construction industry. So our experience is that unfortunately the situation seems to be getting worse.
Right. Pull back the curtain for us, Mr. Mofokeng, and give us some of the stories that you're hearing from business people who are affected by this extortion racket.
Well, firstly starting off with the construction industry, I can tell you now that when this phenomenon started, our members were very active going to report these cases to the police. Others were proactive to go to the courts, and we got some court interdicts and so on. But unfortunately, because of the collaboration that we saw back then between the police and these extortionists, those court orders were never respected. And people kept on coming to the sites, disrupting site activities, and later on started showing up with guns and threatened, to kill people if they did not get money. We are now seeing that activities are extending to other businesses. I'm sure you've seen the reports, from the Eastern Cape, where doctors are now forced to close their businesses because they cannot keep up with the demand of the extortionists. Spaza shops are affected. Hawkers are affected. So the extent to which, these activities are now, affecting other business sectors is quite worrying at the moment.
Yeah.
So we are seeing it literally across many other business sectors and not only confined to a selective select sectors.
Willem, Sitembele, I'll come back to you in a short while. Willem, to what extent are we seeing a lot of copycats with regards to this type of crime? What I mean by that is that if we say that there was established syndicates that are perpetrating such crime, now that this has come to the fore, do we have a lot of people that are just trying to get into the game, so to speak, and get a quick buck?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's a quick buck and it's greed. So in the first place, when these organized crime syndicates move out, they are very structured, very organized. They compromise state actors, and they plan very well, and then they make a lot of money quick. They really go big. But now, at the end of the day, you sit with these guys on the sideline. They see how these guys are making big money. They copycat, and then at the end of the day, they move in and they move into maybe a different sphere, and that is why we see some different areas. Like for instance, what you mentioned is the doctor and also the schools. One of the schools in the Eastern Cape that was targeted was a school for learners with disabilities. I mean, how low can you go to do that? And we see in the Free State it also go to other businesses. So many of those are your copycats that don't go for the high-end users. They just see that it's a quick buck, and they copy the modus operandi of these guys, and then they go for it.
Sitembele, your lived experiences, the talk in your town with regards to this.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's very difficult, and the people who are involved in this are children aged 13 to 14 sometimes who are carrying guns. So even the age in itself is alarming. It's calling for a strategy that is targeting, or a strategy that is going to look at many different methods to sort the crime. So addressing the crime in itself, or the root cause of the crime, would be one of them. But there's a need of visible policing and patrolling of the police in these hotspot areas, because we've already identified that these are the areas where these people are operating in. Why are the SABC or the police not operating and patrolling in those areas to ensure? Because a person will not commit a crime once they know that they're likely to be caught. But they will commit a crime if they know that the police are only going to arrive onto the scene many, many hours later. So there's a need not just to have visible policing, but to have that collaboration with the private sector, private security sector, and also with community policing forums to ensure that the community is also involved and brought in to ensure that this is eradicated from the community.
Yeah, important point. It talks to the question of the week we're asking you in terms of the strategies, in terms of the measures to be put in place to protect the vulnerable groups, to protect those living with disabilities, to protect the elderly. These are often the targets. This is what the reporting is telling us. How best can we do that? What is the consequences in terms of investment? We will touch on that in a short while. Quick break, more next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. Important topic tonight we're discussing. Put up the question. Let's give the viewer a sense of what direction we're going in, why we need your help in this regard. It's an important question. What strategies can be adopted to protect communities, to protect businesses, to protect vulnerable groups from extortion? Let us know at SABC News_TV. Now, to our regular word on the street segment, people expressing fear and disappointment over the rise in extortion cases in most parts of the country. This is what you had to say. Take a look.
It's a terrible thing, We're in a situation where we're trying to get our economy to rise, and people are starting businesses and investing money and trying to make themselves, prosper and do well. And then these gangsters come in and try and, take without doing work and without contributing. And, they kind of, they bring down the country.
I think law enforcement have to really take their job seriously, because if you look at this thing from the other lens, it may seem like as if they're also part of the problem. they might be working with these individuals.
Think about how people hate their jobs and they keep waking up to go to their job. Imagine you're a business owner and you hate your own establishment. So it's like your own child that you're trying to take care of, but you can't based on the circumstances of the extortion.
The whole protection fee thing doesn't make sense, because why am I paying you so that you don't rob me or hurt my business in any way? So I feel like that much in itself is moving our communities backwards, because now you find there's people who don't want to start businesses or keep running their business because they're afraid that somebody's going to come in and after all their hard work just take their profits and that.
I think firstly, as someone maybe who's trying to venture into business, particularly the business that are sort of like that succumb to this type of circumstance, I feel like it actually discourages you to, I don't know, give it a try, because you actually know like the forthcomings or the things that you're going to encounter. So I feel like it's discouraging, you know.
We really appreciate your thoughts on this matter. Gregory Mofokeng from the Black Business Council, given the current rise in extortion reporting generally in the media, we'll talk about the lack of reporting it to the police in a short while, but would you categorize this or classify this as a national crisis from a business point of view?
It is a national crisis. And I mean, the question that you've asked around investment, I can tell you now that a lot of projects are on hold. Some decisions as far as investment are concerned are saying maybe we should take investments elsewhere and not in South Africa because of this problem. So it is a very, very, very big problem. It's a crisis as far as the business sector is concerned. In some of the impact, by the way, that viewers also need to understand is that the cost of delivering projects is increasing simply because people are demanding money for not working. And on the other side, you'll find that the cost of security is increasing significantly. So we do have a serious problem because this phenomenon is impacting on investment, unfortunately.
That's the consequence, right? You're not just hitting one business. You're hitting individuals who have families, you're hitting livelihoods. And talk to us about the real world consequences of families being disrupted by this type of crime.
Well, if you look at businesses have actually closed down. And when businesses close down, owners lose out, employees lose out, other stakeholders lose out. If one has to, again, use a construction industry as an example, once a business closes down, you are unable to even pay the suppliers and the manufacturers that have supplied inputs into that project. So the impact is actually quite broad. It's not only limited to the project, but there's a lot of stakeholders that rely on that project that will lose out. I mean, you can imagine the number of jobs that will be created during construction, the number of jobs that will be created post-production when that asset is operational. All of those benefits are lost because of this phenomenon.
Right. Willem, look, there's no excuse for such a crime, right? But context is important. And we heard unemployment is a contributing factor as well. But talk to us about other factors that are fueling such crimes.
Yes, I think, unemployment is one of them, but also your whole socioeconomic environment that has been mentioned earlier. Those are all contributing factors towards this situation that we are in. And there's something that has been called, it's been called the impossible mandate that has been given to the police, and that is to prevent crime on their own. Yeah. The police does not have control over the socioeconomic, over the jobs, of everything else. The police then has to go to Parliament and they have to go and defend why are they not preventing crime. So I think we need a holistic strategy where all these different departments that can contribute towards job creation, towards better socio-economic environment, to all of those things, they must come together with the police, and they must come up with a holistic strategy. How are we going to create jobs? How are we going to take the children off the street? How are we going to curb the drug trafficking and all of those things? And at the end of the day, that will then contribute to a comprehensive strategy, because we have to, in short term, we have to have a short-term impact on this, but on the long term, if we do not come up with a strategy like that, we are not going to win this fight against crime. Secondly, I think what we need to do also is if you look at the detection rate, and that's all about trust levels in the police. The detection rate, that is from being arrested to being put through court, being found guilty and being sentenced, is only 12.5%. So 12.5% of all the crimes that are committed in South Africa end up with a person being sentenced to prison. And so if you're a gambler, I mean, that is the way to go. Your odds are really not against you. And that creates opportunity. So what we need to do is like I mentioned in the beginning, we have to start to curb corruption. That's the first thing that is deteriorating crime within the police, between the trust between the police and the community. Yeah. And secondly, competency. The moment the police start to demonstrate competency, they will start to regain the trust of the public, and the public will work to them. You're talking about proactive engagement, intelligence. Yes, we have to address our intelligence fraternity, but your best intelligence comes from the community. And if there's not a trust relationship working together with the police from the community, they don't trust the police in order to share information with them, then it is a breakdown and we can't work proactively.
And Diswa, what would give communities more confidence to speak up? The police commissioner was saying that the cases that they currently have doesn't reflect the extent of the problem, which seems to be that there's underreporting, right? The relative silence from communities is for obvious reasons. It's fearful, but also maybe there's an element of a lack of trust. What would give them more confidence in order to speak up and to approach police and to work with police more closely?
Okay, thank you. Like Mr. Willem said, that like gaining trust, the police needs to gain trust from the community. If there's trust, then we conquer everything, right? We can, the police can work with the CPF, the community policing forums, that could create like a link from the police and the community, and they could work together and to get, because remember, the solving of the crimes is not just the work of the police only, but involving community could help very much in terms of fighting this particular crime.
Right. Sitembile, you have your hand up?
I think another element to add is once a case has been reported, a person wants to see that I've reported the case, the person has been removed from the community. If I go and I report the case, but the person is still doing the same thing, or somebody else comes through to do exactly what they were doing, then there is no trust. It means SABC isn't doing their job. So I think a person will only trust SABC if they say, I've reported the case, they've seen a conviction being made, and that the problem that was causing a problem in their business is now gone and they can be free again. So there is no freedom if I report a case, but the person still continues to roam the streets and nothing has been done to remove them.
Greg?
I wanted to respond again to what Willem has said. You know, I had an incident, 3 incidents in my house. I only reported it the first time, and I could see that the police are not serious. And then the second and the third time, I couldn't, because I know that, you know, there was not going to be any arrests being done. You and I know that, you know, there is always underreporting when it comes to rape cases and so on in this country, because people don't have faith in the police. Now, when you have an incident of extortion, and you call the police and you actually show the police that these are the people that are responsible, because these are members of the community, by the way. And I think this is another area that we should all be aware of, that these people don't travel 200 kilometers from another area to come and extort you in a particular community. They stay in that community, they are known in that community, and the police do nothing about it. Of course, you're going to have a problem of lack of trust. And at the moment, I can tell you now, the reason why the police commissioner is saying that this is only the cases that are in the system is because people have resolved that they are not going to report. In fact, what is happening, colleagues, is that now, if you look at the construction industry and other businesses, they are now pricing in the cost of extortion. So when the extortionists come there, people are now having money ready to pay these extortionists because they know that law enforcement is of no use whatsoever. So the cost of extortion, if we don't do anything about this, will be normalized. And businesses will start, you know, budgeting for those, and the cost will then be passed on to us as end consumers, because we are the consumers of these goods and services that are being given to us by these businesses.
Hello, Musa. Go on. If you can unmute, there we go.
So to emphasize, also to emphasize on confidence that the community's needs. I think the community should have community leaders that can stand in for them and as a bridge towards making a bond with the law enforcement so that they can prevent crimes from happening in the communities.
So there's this need for a holistic approach, Noluvo.
Yes, so when we see this crime of extortion, it's more of a systematic crime. So these people are more calculative. So if they can see that the police are not doing anything, they weigh the gains that we're going to get more money, we're going to get more properties, but the risks are limited. The risks are very limited. So if the police or the law enforcement starts to act on these crimes, because it does not end on extortion. There are cases of murder, there are vendors that are being killed if they are refusing to pay these fees, which are so unnecessary. I was even shocked when the viewer said it's protection. Protection from what? From who? Because those are the only people who are perpetrating this thing. So if the police start to act on this, and these criminals will see that the risks are more higher than the rewards they were going to get in return.
Gregory, what strategies can business implement, I guess, to mitigate risks?
Well, at the moment, we are looking at each sector individually and saying what strategies can be deployed. I can tell you now that in the construction industry, for instance, we are looking at an intelligence-driven solution. Unfortunately, it is going to come at a cost, because we view this as additional cost that should not be there in the first instance. But if one looks at it, you need to proactively go into the community before the projects are implemented, identify who the troublemakers are, and try and isolate them even before the project starts. That is going to come in at a cost, and it is a cost that we have to unfortunately carry, because the police are simply not present. Of course, we are encouraging others who are perhaps, who operate at a much more localized level to look at issues of CPF and cooperate, with the CPFs and the police to try and curb, this phenomenon at their level. Yeah. The unfortunate issue is that, the more we leave this crime, to be entrenched, communities now start to take a law into their own hands. I was listening to a report earlier today that in Mofokeng, 3 people have been killed because of mob justice. People are tired and they're taking the law into their own hands. So we do have to come up with a solution. And I can only hope that the police will now get their act together so that we can then be able to work collaboratively with business and the CPFs in our communities to address this problem.
And the fight against extortion, Willem, is not unique to South Africa. What can South Africa learn from other countries?
Yeah, you're so right. If you look at the Mafia Index, you see that South Africa is ranked in the upper quadrant with notorious states where the Mafia actually originated, and that is Italy, and also then with countries like in South America, like Brazil and those countries where the gangs are really out of hand. And what you see in countries like Ecuador, there was this one-dimensional, very high-handed approach. It cleaned the streets, it filled the prisons, it took away all the human rights of the criminals, etc., etc. But that is a very one-dimensional, very short-lived and short-sighted approach. You have to have a long and holistic approach to do that. We saw with Italy, for instance, they've been involved with this since the 30s, and they got together. First of all, they sorted out their legislation. Even their president has been taken hostage by the mafia. So they got a real good history of that. Then they started to work with task teams, and they are really spending lots and lots of money and resources in order to eradicate this monster that was created and allowed to continue for too long and to be institutionalized. And even today, you got a task team and they're actively fighting. They have not won the battle as yet.
Yeah. Sitembile, considering that the reports of extortion are so ubiquitous, do you think that there's a need, do you think it'll help for a national hotline like the one in the Eastern Cape to as a platform, I guess, for people to feel safe enough to report?
I think it will be a great start to engage people. If people can be able to report anonymously, I think that will really help. So I think it will raise the number of cases that are being reported, and there might be a change that we can see, but it's only a start. There needs to be more that is going to be done, and an implementation that is huge from the SOPs needs to be done as in yesterday.
Yeah. Gregory?
Just about to say, in addition to what Willem is saying, is that in South Africa, we are still fortunate because our experience is that, you still don't have this strong networks. It's still very much decentralized. You've got guys who are operating in specific geographical areas, and they are not necessarily connected, to the other gangs operating in the other areas. But if we leave this issue for too long, they will start then being integrated and start getting organized and start getting networked. Right. And I think we still have an opportunity as a country to act now because they're still operating pretty much in isolation and at a very localized level. So
just flesh that out a bit more. I think that's an important point, Gregory. Flesh that out a bit in terms of what you mean by more organized.
So what you will see is that, if for instance, the guys are operating in Tshwane, for instance, they are not necessarily linked to the guys that are operating in Soweto, right? So even if you take action in, and isolate and address the issue in Tshwane, you will find that there's no retaliation happening in Soweto because that's how some of these networks globally operate, that you hit them in one area and then you will see a response happening in another area. So right now, what we are witnessing is that these are still pretty much localized activities. Yeah. And if we can nip them in the bud now, it will then stop them from then being creating provincial or even a national network.
Willem, last word to you.
Yeah, I agree with Gregory says, and what we notice, especially they actually thrive on fear and instilling fear in the community. Like, for instance, the gang here in Mamelodi in Pretoria, they call themselves Boko Haram. Because of the link to terrorism and the fear of terrorism. In the Northwest province, they call themselves Al Qaeda. So it seems that they thrive on fear. They want to instill fear on our public, and by means of that intimidate the public in order not to report them to the police and so on. So, but I think we have to look at solutions. We have to look at restoring the trust with the police. But then we've got a wonderful policing system called the sector policing model. We have to get our communities involved, and on station level, they can win it together with their station, and they will also have input into the strategy, but also the targets and the agenda of that police in their area if they become more involved.
Willem, Gregory, Mofokeng, our digital audience, value added, no doubt, and always a plus to the audience. Thank you so much. The conversation, no doubt, continues until we get to that better place where we put paid to such crimes. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. All right, before we go, here's my take. And I've said this before and I'll say it again because the sentiment holds true. Fear can be a contagious agent. It has the potential of severely debilitating communities. Consequential, why? Because debilitated communities weakens a nation's resolve to progress. It undermines the fight for peace and prosperity. It deters investment, as Gregory said. We need to arrest fear. The big question is how? What is the most effective way to do this? It's something that we, as the SABC News, will be looking into in greater detail this coming week. Problems and solutions. That's what it's all about. We will discuss. And that's my take. If you miss anything on this program, be sure to watch this episode of It's Topical on YouTube. Democracy 30 up next with Oliver Dixon. If you're watching a repeat of this program, then as always, the news continues. Until next week, my brothers and sisters, take care. Bye-bye.